Welcome to Speakernomics, the official podcast of the National Speakers Association, created and hosted by speakers for speakers. As we count down to the new year, we're celebrating our top 10 episodes of 2025, packed with powerful insights to help you become a better speaker and build a better business. Before we dive in, here's a quick announcement. Speakernomics is getting a glow up. Launching in January 2026, we're coming back with a fresh format, dynamic new hosts, and a stellar lineup of subject matter experts. Click the link below to subscribe and download wherever you listen to podcasts. The stage is set. Let's tune in. This week at number 8, we are listening to Brian Walter, CSP, CPAE, Cabot Award winner, and mastering memorable speeches with the Sticky Framework.
He is a CSP, a Hall of Fame, emcee, speaker, interviewer, and infotainment expert, a former president of NSA, as well as a world record holder. Brian, welcome to Speakernomics. How are you today?
Great, Shark. Thanks so much for having me. I thought you were, for a second there, you said the past president of Venezuela. I'm like, really? Maybe I could get that. That's a good gig.
No, they've all come here. So, all right, now to all my speaking friends, what are you doing extremely well? Not just well, but extremely well. What makes your content sticky? What's the most important thing that you want to leave them with from your speech? How do you transform your presentations and meetings and make them memorable, sticky even, and go from boring to exciting? Many times to do that, you have to go to the extreme. And that's why we've got the Extreme MC with us today. And before we jump in, make sure to go to speakernomics.com. That's where you can find the tips, insights, and knowledge to help you become a better speaker, build a better business, and get paid to speak. Brian, let's dive in. First of all, when you look at your years of experience in working as a speaker and as an MC and being in this business, how have you looked at making that memorable, making that content memorable and even sticky, especially as the business of speaking evolves?
To me, what makes your content sticky more than anything else is following a framework that I like to call the sticky framework, which is gettable, feelable, sayable, doable. And to me, if you do at least some
repeat that one more time for everybody.
Sure, again, gettable, feelable, sayable, doable. Now, in a perfect world, you would do all 4 of those. But to me, it's like a ranking down there, and at least is that a perceived aha. Is there something to get based on what you do? Now, here's an example. Let's say if I were to say something like, so, Shark, what was the most memorable speech you have ever heard ever? What would you say?
Probably the first one I ever did.
First one you have done. I'm saying someone else. Not
someone else.
Someone else is like, you've heard like, oh, that was such a memorable.
Absolutely. So it was the one that was the most clear, just profound presence on stage that I've ever seen. And I'll credit that to Zig Ziglar.
Okay, so Zig Ziglar, there you go. And so
when we say
that Zig Ziglar speech, we'll probably remember a big moment. Like for me, when I remember the first time I ever heard what I would later discover was a professional speaker. I was in-house for an advertising agency for a department store chain, and we went to this conference, and Ken Dykewald, who's a professional speaker, came out and he talked about the age wave. Now, this is in the early 90s. This is the first conference I ever heard a professional speaker, and I heard him make this point. He said it's like the silent generation has amassed a huge amount of money that they didn't spend because they were, Depression era people. And over the next 25 years, they are going to die and pass all that money to boomers who will go on the greatest spending spree the world has ever known. And I'm like, that's me. I'm going to be in that generation that goes on the giant spending spree. And that was from probably 1992. And I can still tell you when he said that. It's like, wow. Now, he probably said 15 other things, and I remember maybe 1.5 other ones here. But when we think of something sticky, they don't remember all of our content. They remember what was the perceived aha. Do we have what I call the Scooby Doo response? If we don't know what the Scooby Doo response will be to our speech, there's a big chance we don't have sticky content. We just have content.
So how do you identify that Scooby Doo moment, which I love that analogy, but how do you identify that one moment within your speech that is really transformative?
Well, when it comes to your content being sticky, I guess a key principle is everything can't be sticky. Like I've got my 17 points of transformation. It's like, it's impossible for humans to remember that much. And, well, what about my 8 steps to ensure delegation? It's impossible for humans during a speech to remember all this content. Not saying you still don't need to present, more rich stuff in a keynote or something, but the big takeaway, the big aha, is going to be a certain thing or this or that. So you want to pick what that's going to be. And I call it pick your sticks. Pick your sticks. What do you expect to be sticky? Now, sometimes it's like you will hopefully put craft. You will design what that's going to be. You will make that sticky so that it's sticky because you, as the speaker who originated this program, are the ones deciding this is what is supposed to be more important. However, sometimes you discover what's sticky by what audiences members tell you after your speech. Now, I'm sure you've had this experience before. You've just given this great presentation and you're basking in the glow of all these people coming up. Oh my gosh, that was so amazing. Oh, Shark, you're so amazing. You're so blah, 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 blah. You're going, yes, yes, yes. And then someone says, when you said blah, 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 I mean, wow, it blew my mind. And you say, thank you. The problem is you didn't actually say that. You didn't say that. Sometimes the audiences will hear something different from what you've said. Now, if that's just a one-off, great. But sometimes you will hear multiple people saying, we heard this. And then you've got to decide. It's like one of two things. That isn't actually the most important thing. Therefore, I need to work on my most important aha point. So that is what they remember. Or you realize the audience is smarter than you, and you should make that the most important thing. I remember when I had a program on elevator speeches, on giving elevator speech, and I had this very elaborate how to say what you do in such a way that people wanted you to keep talking. So that sounded very clever to me. And it was clever, but not, effective. But I'm talking, and I ad-lib during this speech. When someone says, what do you do? It's like a game of verbal ping pong. They hit it to you. And what are you supposed to do when you play verbal ping pong? You're supposed to hit it back. I just ad-libbed that. At the end of the program, people came up and they said, I love your verbal ping pong program. Oh, really? And they said, how long has this verbal ping pong program, how long has it been called the verbal ping pong program? And I'm thinking, well, including today, 1 day. So there you go. So the audience told me that out of everything I was saying, verbal ping pong was actually the concept. And so I wound up embracing what the audience's insights were and changing my program to what they heard, regardless of the volume of what I said.
How do you then go about framing that one thing when you have identified with it and make it sticky? You mentioned that earlier. Is how do you design, building around that one pillar? What are the kind of things you do? Is it additional stories? Because to your point, I specifically remember a time that I came up and complimented somebody with something, and they didn't even push back and say I didn't say that. I don't think they knew that they said it, and it made me laugh because I realized they probably were doing a lot of their speech ad hoc and didn't remember everything through their speech. But when you start really trying to get people to focus on that one thing, you could miss the mark if you don't frame it correctly. And they, to your point, if they could hear something else or hear something that doesn't even relate back to your topic. But really, when you start crafting to make it sticky, what are the pieces that you put around it to make it stick?
Well, sure. I'll talk about 2 different tracks to make it go. One is what I call, again, the sticky framework, which again is gettable, feelable, sayable, doable. Is there a perceived aha? If there's not a perceived aha, sticky is going to be very difficult. You're going to have to go with the spray and pray approach. I say all these things and I pray one of them hopefully will stick. That does quasi work for some people, but that's not what the best keynoters do. That's not what the best trainers or program or workshop leaders do. It's like they say, no, this is what's the most important, or this and that are the most important things. So, a perceived aha. they've got to be a hooked emotion. If we want someone to remember something, if we want to stick with them, they have to feel it. So we have to align an emotion. An emotion could be surprise, shock and awe, could be envy, could be hope. It could be exasperation. I mean, we can tie into negative and positive informations, but people have to feel something for them to go, whoa. Because if there's a big moment, like that's the thing they're going to remember. It's like, they have to feel something. And so sometimes it's like, okay, I've got a great perceived aha, but they're not going to remember it because they don't feel that aha enough. They don't feel that point. The next point is I got sayable. There has to be a repeatable it. So when I go to, oh my gosh, I just saw Mark Scherenbrock and he talked about blah, 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 blah. I have to be able to say blah, 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 blah. I have to tell you what he said, something of what he said. I can repeat it. There's an it that gets repeatable. Otherwise, it was like, oh my gosh, Mark Scherenbrock is amazing. What did he talk about? Stuff, but I mean, it was all amazing. Like what? You had to be there. Now, of course, if it's just you had to be there, that's not a repeatable it, and you'll have a sense of that speaker, but you won't be able to say their content was sticky. And the last one is, if possible, that there is an understood trigger. There's an understood next step. If you're in a situation where this happens, oh my gosh, I should do that. Now that's what I call the sticky framework: gettable, feelable, sayable, doable. Now, a more easier, practical way to look at this is you take a point and you say, I need a memory hack. I want to make a memory hack to have them remember this one thing. The memory hack is pretty much a shortcut to brute force repetition. That's what you want to do, memory hacks.
Well, and I think the question I was probably trying to ask in a more eloquent way than I just did was, do you simply, in your way, design stories around this to get them to remember what are the actual content pieces as you build your speech or presentation that you personally use to really build that in, to really solidify that one thing?
Sure. Again, stories are absolutely part of it, because stories go to, I remember the feeling and an overall idea. Stories, again, it's like, that is the most visceral thing that all human beings have in common. We are story experiencers and storytellers. I mean, so that overall is great. But when it comes to memory hacks, it's like we have to get people to remember specific content. Like, here's a technique. Here is an aha. You actually do something with it. You don't just feel it or remember it. You're supposed to do something different from what you currently do. So we have to get people to remember a specific line or concept or idea. So memory hacks are, again, I say that it's a shortcut to remembering something other than brute force repetition. Now, when it comes to remembering things, nothing is better than brute force repetition. I've had laser eye surgery. I don't know if you've ever had laser eye surgery, but I'm thinking whoever the surgeon was, she or he, who worked in my eye, I hope they did this 1,000 times before they ever got to my eyeballs. But when we're speaking about leadership change, sales, closing techniques, how to, work better with different generations in the workplace, none of those are things that we have the option to repeat again and again and again and again and again and again. So we need a shortcut to do that. So it could be a line to remember. We want them to use an acronym. We want to use a alliteration. There's something that's going to get someone to remember it. Give an example. I have a client, and they're in the HR department. I was doing some internal consulting with them. And they said, well, we've got to get everybody collaborating more. Collaboration is really important. If I give a speech to their group and say collaboration is really important, what are they going to remember? Nothing. So I've merely added one word: sprints. We're going to talk to you about collaboration sprints. What are collaboration sprints? I mean, when you think of collaboration, you think, oh my gosh, this is going to take forever. Oh my gosh, blah, blah, blah. So what we've done is we've paired another idea with the key word: collaboration sprints. You look at the situation. Who do I need to show up with that client with? We collaborate together, and then we go back and we stop collaborating. So moment, And you come in, you come out. So that suddenly is now more acceptable. People are now buzzing about collaboration sprints. Whereas if I just called it collaboration, it wouldn't be that. So it's the idea you brand your point so that it's remembered. That's the actual technique.
Do you think this should always only be limited to one point? And the reason I'm bringing this up is I hear from, especially in the business world, where they're not just looking for one big idea, but often maybe three. I'm always thinking of the power of three actual takeaways. It's something that I did at my own conference too. And I agree completely. I find a lot of speakers often miss that one big idea, that one that everybody remembers. None of them are sticky, but I often wonder, is there a way for those people that do the one well to be able to do one or two more?
So I think when it comes to speakers, for us to all just talk about one thing only, that's great for like a TEDx or possibly a keynote. Like again, if someone's hiring me to do a keynote, I'm supposed to align with the theme. I'm supposed to have an idea, a note, not a keynote. It doesn't say hire me to do a symphony. It says a keynote. So we want to have like the one big idea, but within that one big idea, there might be, well, how do you apply it? What is it made up of? There's going to be different additional components, but also what is the gateway? It's like, okay, there's an aha, and there was a story that made me feel, and then I give you a little information from like if you're in this situation, this is how you would apply it. So those are multiple content points that you're making, and there might be a model that you're presenting, but it's really going to come down to, again, was there an aha? Did I feel something? Is there a repeatable it? Can I say what it was? And do I know what to do something with it? To me, that's the ultimate measurement. Now, again, you can do that multiple times in a longer program, because again, not everyone on this on our Speakernomics is like, I'm not necessarily a keynoter. It's like everyone doesn't keynote or doesn't keynote primarily. It's like, okay, I do a 90-minute program. 90 minutes a lot different than 45 minutes. Or I do a 3-hour. Sometimes people say, well, I do a 3-hour keynote. It's not a keynote if you're doing it for 3 hours. It's a program. Or you might be training, or you might be doing a workshop or a lab or something like that. So there's, within our speaker continuum, there's a huge range of lengths and purposes, but still it comes down to the bottom line. Do you have insights you want them to remember? Do you want them to be able to act on it? In which case we have to use these tools of memory hacks to help people remember what we said so they can do something different.
Now for a little speaking trivia. With one of the most memorable and iconic speeches of all time, approximately how large of a crowd witnessed Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech? Back with the answer in just a moment. Before we jump back to the show, here's a moment with NSA member and certified speaking professional Jess Pettit. Jess, what does the NSA mean to you and your speaking business?
NSA, the National Speakers Association, means to me you get out of an organization what you put in it. I wouldn't have a business if it wasn't for what I have taken from NSA, and that is in direct correlation for what I have volunteered, shared, and really tried to support other speakers. This is a very lonely business. This is a very scary risk happening. A business is a roller coaster that I think I volunteered to get on. And NSA is a community of other people on the same journey. It is an honor to be able to support other people, build that community that I definitely benefit from. And like I said, I wouldn't have a business 20-something years later if it weren't for NSA.
We all got a ticket to the same roller coaster.
I know there's
Better hang on.
There's not snacks, but it is worth the ride.
And here's the answer. In 1963 in Washington, D.C., Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech was witnessed by an estimated crowd of approximately 250,000 people. And now, back to the show. You're going to be talking about this at Thrive in 2025. in Orlando. Is there anything else we're going to cover? Because this is already memorable and makes me want to go see it.
Excellent. Yeah, so I'll be speaking on Saturday of Thrive, and the session's going to be called Memory Hacks. And so I'm going to, because you want to talk about what are some specific techniques, I'm going to be doing multiple techniques on how to, what to create, I call them like mini brands. Like how do you brand a point so that people remember it? What are different techniques? It could be, alliteration. It could be rhythm. It could be acronyms. It could be call and response. I mean, there's a lot of different techniques that you can use to get people to remember something other than just charm and hope.
Well, here's a question I want to ask you from a previous guest. What is the worst gig you've ever done and why?
The worst gig I've ever done and why? Okay, so during the pandemic, of course, which was all a fun time for all of us, we all became very intense virtual presenters, and we all expanded into beyond our comfort zone, really. So I'm doing a gig where I'm the MC, but I'm not just the MC of this awards program for the client. I am also producing it for them. And so I'm doing their slide deck with my slides, introducing people, pulling people up, playing videos, advancing slides. And so I'm and I had done this multiple times, and it wasn't my happy place, but I could do it. And we got to a certain point about halfway through when I had an equipment freeze that I had not had. So I'm still talking, but again, the slides froze and the video was playing froze. And I'm like, and I'm trying to okay, so I can't just reboot this because I'm the one hosting the meeting. And so I'm trying to plug in another thing while I'm talking. And I didn't realize it because normally when I'm on stage, I'm in control of everything that comes out of my mouth. But in this multitasking mode, I'm discovering that I'm saying non-edifying things into the microphone while it's happening. It's like, what the heck? It's like, so to talk amongst yourselves for a moment here as and I can't take away my picture because it's frozen. It's frozen on. So I'm trying to talk to them, have them do something while I'm doing it. And it was the most stressful, boring, horrible, mess up thing. When I was done, I got on the call with a client and they went, "What the bleep was that?" And so my response, of course, is say, needless to say, that was free. And I still have PTSD from that speech shark. So thank you for having me to bring that memory back here so I can be triggered tonight.
Well, you just have to tell everybody you got a 5.0 on Talkadot and they'll believe it. So then I've got another question. What is a question that you would like to ask a future guest on this show?
All right. So here's and it ties into sticky content like we're talking about here, sticky speaking. So when your speech is done and an audience, what do you want the audience to say your speech was about? So they said, "Oh my gosh, what was so-and-so's speech about?" What do you want to come out of their mouth next? Now, again, it's not like, "Oh, it was amazing," because I'm not saying how was it. I'm saying what was the speech is about. They're going to say something, and it's not going to be 3 sentences or 4 paragraphs. They're going to say, "Oh my gosh, it was great. It was about X." What do you want your client to say your speech was about? That's the question.
All right, well, let's do a quick recap then based on Brian's extreme advice. What makes it sticky to Brian is his framework? Make it gettable, feelable, sayable, and doable. They
Perfect.
remember. What's that?
I said, "You're perfect."
Okay.
Crushed it.
Cool. They remember the perceived aha. If you don't know your own Scooby Doo moment, it isn't sticky. Number 2, don't make it too many things. You can present them with a lot of things throughout your presentation, but pick what that one thing is. Pick your sticks and then design the content around it to make it sticky. Sometimes they remember it differently from you, so make sure you emphasize what you want to make sticky. Number 3, to get them to remember that you have to hook them with emotion. They have to feel something. Brian, I'm looking forward to seeing you at Thrive. again. Any last closing thoughts before we speak ourselves off this stage?
The last thing is going back to what you just said. Pick your sticks, because if you don't, they will, and what they choose might be different from what you had hoped.
Outstanding. Friends, make sure to join us at Speakernomics.com and let your voice be heard. I'm Kenneth Kinney, your host of the National Speakers Association's podcast, Speakernomics, and this has been another sticky episode of the show. Thank you, Brian, for your service to NSA and for lending your voice to the show. And everyone listening, thank you for the privilege of your time. And remember, Speakernomics is a podcast where you'll learn to speak, get paid, repeat.
Thank you for listening to Speakernomics, the official podcast of the National Speakers Association. Interested in taking your speaking career to the next level? If you'd like more information on becoming a member of the National Speakers Association, just click the link in the description below. And don't miss your chance to attend NSA's Thrive Conference in New Orleans this February 2026. It's the ultimate event to gain exclusive insights and practical skills from top industry leaders. That link is in the description too. We'll see you there.